we're scared to do. Gene Hamilton, he's the president of America First Legal. Chad Wolf, former acting secretary of Homeland Security. They both join us now. Chad, want to start with you. Talk about the leftist media reaction immediately jumping to the defense of immigrants, one of them being the Wall Street Journal writing, the ambush on the National Guard, the alleged shooting by an Afghan partner. Shouldn't condemn all who assisted the U.S. and now live here. The New York Times, they wrote, Trump uses National Guard shooting to cast suspicion on refugees. What are we supposed to do, huh? What do you think here, Gene? Turn a blind eye?
Yeah, look, we're not supposed to turn a blind eye to this. What you pointed out, what the president has pointed out, is that we are talking about a large systemic existential problem for this country, which is about the issue of assimilation. And we're looking at the tail end of decades of failed policy of assuming that you could adequately screen and vet people coming from active war zones, coming from Afghanistan. And the simple fact is that you can't. You just simply can't vet and adequately screen the people that we're talking about coming into this country who are not going to assimilate, who are not going to adapt to Western values. There's no database that you can check if the database doesn't exist. And further, you can't even screen to determine if this person actually loves America. That should be the ultimate question. Do you love America? Are you going to make this country a better place?
I love that the president wrote, any disruptors, you got to go. Imagine that. You put yourself in their shoes. Go to another country, Chad. Start causing problems. You're there illegally, and then you think you have the right to stay here. It's so arrogant. Then on top of that, like up in Minnesota, to steal our money and send it to terror groups. I fully support what President Trump wrote.
Well, look, I think half of America or more also supports the president. And I think we have this is a point in time in U.S. history where we have to make some very difficult and hard decisions. Otherwise, we could end up looking like France or UK or Sweden over the last 10 years, where they have allowed unchecked immigration into their country from places and from people that don't share their values. And now they are there's consequences for that, uncontrolled crime in those countries and the like. So I think President Trump, as much as the left will try to paint him in a certain box, in a certain light, he is doing what the majority of Americans want, which is protecting everyday Americans, protecting Western civilization, protecting our culture. And I think more and more Americans agree with that.
That's just it. Protect and preserve our American way of life, which has rapidly changed, especially over the last 4 years. I want to get to this. Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia of Texas, she's commenting on this tonight.
We've seen, especially over these last few months, the dehumanization of immigrants. What's happened, whether it's been with ICE or DHS, the mass agents taking people away, the detention centers that no one can visit. He views immigration in such a negative light that is, quite frankly, anti-American. Americans and this country know and understand that immigration has been a net positive and continues to be.
Excuse me, that was Robert Garcia, Gene. But I think we should have standards, right? All we are asking for, and I think I can speak for just about all of us here, is legal immigration with standards, right?
Look, I think that our national policymakers, our members of Congress, the people in the executive branch need to look at immigration the way that they would look at inviting someone to come into their house. Ultimately, that's what the situation is. Is this person going to make my household better? Am I going to be safe and secure with this person in my household? Or alternatively, are they going to pose a threat to my family? Are they going to deteriorate the condition of my house? And so we have had decades of people making the wrong decisions for the wrong reasons, and instead just being very, very simply focused on, is this person's presence in the United States going to make this a better country?
Yeah, well said here. And I also want to talk about this, the shooter here. We know he came into the U.S. in 2021 after the botched Afghanistan withdrawal. It was under the Operation Allies Welcome, right? So they got roughly 75,000 in that. Another program brought even more. But according to a 2022 Inspector General report as part of Operation Allies Welcome, the CBP did not always have critical data to properly screen, vet, or inspect the evacuees. We also determined the CBP admitted or paroled evacuees who were not fully vetted into the United States here. So, Chad, your biggest worry is what? I think I can speak for many Americans. They're worried about what went down in D.C. on Wednesday is going to happen again, and it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the concern. And when you bring in over 100,000 folks under Operation Welcome Allies that weren't vetted, weren't properly vetted, it doesn't matter if they tried to do some initial checks, and they did, they brought all those folks in, if you recall, in a matter of days and weeks. That process is much, much longer to do that correctly, not to mention the number of millions of folks coming across that border. And the Biden team just handed out humanitarian parole like candy. And now we're having to deal with the consequences. First, President Trump had to seal the border, had to fix what Biden broke. And now, unfortunately, he's going to have to revet and relook at all of these individuals that were given humanitarian parole by the Biden administration. Again, President Trump and his team are having to pick up the pieces broken by the Biden team.
Absolutely. Gene, here, everything President Trump talked about in that Truth Social post legally, I would suppose that there's going to be some pushback. Judges might get involved, things like that. Can you talk about what that road looks like over the next coming months?
Look, what President Trump is calling for is precisely what the INA articulates and provides him with the power to do by law. I was there all the first 4 years of the Trump 1.0, and I was there earlier in this term. I know, and the team there knows, that they are going to get challenged. They are going to get sued. But at the end of the day, the law is on their side. The Constitution is on their side. These laws provide for immigration to be conducted in the national interest, for people to be removed when they don't, when they commit certain offenses, when they meet certain criteria. And ultimately, the ability to cut off immigration any time that the president determines it's contrary to the national interest is well within his power, as recognized by the Supreme Court just a few years ago in the infamous Trump versus Hawaii decision. So I think that ultimately the president's going to prevail because the policy, the law is right on his side. The American people are there with him. But there's going to be some hiccups, and we will see how it all plays out.
Has been the whole way, though I know he's done really well in court, especially when it gets up to the highest level, the Supreme Court there, which I'm sure likely a lot of this will. Chad Wolf, Gene Hamilton, got to leave it there. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.